If you ever wanted to learn more about farm life in Wisconsin in the late 1800s and early 1900s, a great place to start is the Belgian Heritage Center. It's housed in the old St. Mary of the Snows Church in Namur, which is in southern Door County. I met with Joe Alexander, president of the Belgian Heritage Center, and his mother Teresa to hear about the early settlers and their descendants.
I was born here, which at the time was named Delwich, because the first Mass was said in a Delwich home. But then, of course, we changed it to Namur, and then to Fairland, and now back to Namur. That was in 1937. And I lived in this area, and my mother's relatives lived at the Steel Wheel. And there were like 12 or 13 people that lived there, and my grandmother used to make either 12 or 13 loaves of bread every week. So that was but they stayed together, and that is a trait of the Belgians. They live in the same area, they stay there. They really do. And the person that owned that was one of the first in about 1850, I think 1853, the Everards came, Alex Everard. He lived in where the Steel Wheel is. And then he donated 3 acres of land for the church here. And that was my church. I came to church here. My mother and dad did, and that. When we moved, of course, then we went to the Brussels church. But all the relatives were around here, especially my mother's relatives were all, and we were there visiting each other all the time. It was always the family, grandma and grandpa, and we were close, very close. It's not that way anymore, but it was really good. House chores were not for me. I would rather go to the barn and help my dad clean the barn, take care of the cows, and we had a horse. So, that was my thing. And of course, I did have to help in the garden and pick berries and that, but that was not my favorite. And baking, well, my sister would do that. So I was not a home person. Just put me outside. That's what I really liked. And we had, my husband, which I didn't know at the time, lived across the street. He lived right next door. And of course, all of us here would gather together maybe once a week, and we would play games, like get hide and go seek, and very simple games. But there was a group of probably 10, 12 kids that were running around here, and it was fun. It was fun, and we had no cell phones, just fun. Je m'amadie de din Aus, 11h05, Gamin. When I was born, my grandmother spoke Walloon. My mother spoke Walloon. We all spoke Walloon. Everybody did. Very rare. When someone came in and talked English, you were like, oh, So we had to change. And I didn't understand, but when you go to school and you're 7, 8 years old, it doesn't take very long. You learn it right away. And I remember the fact that I had 4 friends that could speak Walloon, and we would go hide in the corner and talk to each other because the other people they kind of laughed at us, and we didn't hang around with them. But as I said, it didn't take long. My grandmother also had she had boarders, and the teachers were boarders, and one of them took me aside and she taught me English and how to read. So I could read a book, but I did not really know what I was reading. Sight read. But that was a big help. So it was great growing up. And of course, you raise all your own vegetables and the meat. Everything was all you didn't go anywhere. We went to Green Bay twice a year for Easter, and we got a new outfit, and for the Kermis, another new outfit. That was it. Clothing. Didn't spend much money. Didn't have it really. We didn't. You just didn't have the money. But we had the eggs from the chicken. You had the meat from the cows and the garden. So we were fine. Healthy. As I said, we didn't have a lot of money. We didn't have a lot of machinery. And I know when we were running the farm in Brussels, my father would come out here and he'd borrow a plow or whatever it was. We'd borrow it from the relatives and that. And they would come with their tractors and that. Or if it was with horses, we often used the horses. And we had our own horses, but we'd share, bring back. It was, my mother sold eggs when she had the chickens. And I guess we didn't think it was a hard time. We had food and we had friends, and once maybe, I don't know, once or twice a year we would go to a movie. We'd go to a movie in Algoma, that was the closest. And we thought that was great. So I guess I can't say we felt it was hard. We just didn't. We just kind of were jealous. Some girls had more dress, a lot of dresses, skirts and that, and we didn't have that many. We had probably 2 or 3 and that was it. We were most of my life, we were living in the home place, my dad's home place, which meant that my aunts and uncles all came back. Almost, some of them most every week, and at least once a month, and every Christmas or any occasion, they all came back. And we had a house full of people laughing and joking and playing cards. And we thought it was great. And at the time, right across the street where my husband lived, they had, like at the Kermis, they would bring in horses and ring the bell and different things. Even one time they had an airplane. And that was really, it was everybody. It was just, nobody wanted to go for a ride. And I know my husband took a cousin, and they went up in the plane, and the mother didn't know it. Till all of a sudden she saw, here, her kid is missing, and here he is up in the plane. But I never went to the plane. We didn't realize that we didn't have all, that people say we should have had, would be happy if we had. No, I think we didn't want. We didn't know. We were satisfied. And when thrashing time came, or barn raising, anything like that, they all got together. And of course, we loved that because it was a big meal. So the barn raising would be set up, and all the neighbors and even people from far away, your relatives, would come and help the barn raising. And then when it was Kermis, the same thing, they came and helped. And it was a thrash machine and it needed help. But again, we were all excited because it was a big meal, all good food, rich food. They didn't, they used 100% milk. They didn't use skim and butter. So it was fun. Very good memories. The women worked for a long time and very hard. And in around 1858, and this is in Rosaire, some of the women just had said, we are tired of working, and no, they didn't visit very much. They didn't go anywhere. We would like to socialize. We need to have something. And they came up with the Kermis, which really, in a way, was more work for them because they were making the meal. But it was so much fun. They made the meal, and then that lasted about 3 days. It was, and food, oh man, you had food, and I remember they'd have mass, and then the band would be waiting outside the door, and they would march you into the dance hall, and they danced till they had to eat, and then they stopped to eat, and then danced some more. Like I said, 3 days, and drank beer. Belgians are good beer drinkers, so it was good. Those were the best times. And if you had relatives in other areas, you went to their Kermis too. Make sure that you didn't miss anything. When we went to visit Belgium, the areas that we went to visit were where our relatives came from. And they were pretty close in that one area. The Grez d'Oiseau and Brabant and that, the Chudors and the Girondials were in Petaway. So it was pretty much like it was. The only problem they had over there was no land. I think they had about 10 acres. So how can you raise a family on 10 acres? So to them, even though when they got here, they saw all these trees, it was a challenge. But that was one plus from the fire. The fire burned all the trees down. It killed a lot of people. But then they could work the land and seed it. So you gotta look, you do look at it 2 ways. It's sad, but then again, they were able to raise their crops. When we wanted to save the church, one of our goals was to save our heritage. And I think it's very important because the younger people have no idea, how it was when we grew up. We didn't have phones, and some of them can't imagine living without a phone. We didn't have a phone till I was in high school. So lot of the values and raising your own food on the farm. You did your own work, and you always did have help. Like I said, the neighbors came to help. That always was, well, now you hire a carpenter, you hire somebody. But I think that it's so important to remember and so that our kids know and remember Grandma and Grandpa came from the old country and couldn't speak English. That was another, difficulty. They just didn't. Fortunately, they came and there were some Belgians here. So I really think it was great. And I really am intent. My husband and I wanted really to keep it going and to more information. I'm glad we have this. I think it's very, very important that they know their history and their heritage.
Yeah, it's an interesting story. Back in the mid 1800s, the government was offering property for $1.25 an acre. And the ship owners were promoting people to come, of course, to the United States. And it was promoted as the land of opportunity. And in Belgium, especially the southern half of Belgium, there was poverty, there was famine. A lot of the families had small properties, and it just wasn't enough to take care of the families. So, looking at those issues, those are some of the issues that, helped bring them to Wisconsin. And when they got here, they were actually going to look in the Kaukauna area. There was some French-speaking Canadians. So they were going to actually move to the Kaukauna area. And they ended up running into Father Dames, Edward Dames. He was a parish priest in the settlement area. So they ran into him in the Green Bay area when they got here, and since he spoke Walloon, they figured it was much easier to communicate. So they ended up coming up to the Bay settlement area, and from there they kind of went up north a little bit to southern Door County, northern Brown County, and into Kewaunee County. They didn't have the tools. They didn't have tractors. They didn't really even have horses when they first came over, or cows. So a lot of what they did was done by hand. But they all worked together, so they got a lot of stuff done. But there were many challenges. The challenges just getting over to Wisconsin were huge. I mean, you figure they had to leave their families and probably never see some of their family members again. And when they got here, the language was a huge barrier for them. And then to get all the way to northern Wisconsin. And then when they got here, of course, it was advertised as the land of opportunity, but the winters were very harsh, and they had to do everything by hand, take the trees down by hand and all that. So, and then of course the Peshtigo fire, which, did a lot of destruction there, damage and stuff. So, I mean, they had to overcome that. And then in some ways, like I think my mother said earlier, I mean, it's sad, but yet it did clear the land to a certain extent. So there were many challenges. They persevered. So. Well, the dairy was a big one. The cows. I mean, there were chickens and pigs, and of course their gardens were. They always had vegetables for the garden, but shingles were pretty big too. I mean, the wood, since they had so much wood. They ended up making a lot of shingles for roofs, and that was actually brought to the bay and brought down to on the water of the bay down to Green Bay. They shipped it down there, but so shingles were pretty big too. It's interesting because you mentioned I think somewhat on how to know if it's a Belgian barn, but to me, I think it's easier to recognize a Belgian barn when you see the farmhouse, because a Belgian farmhouse is more distinct than probably a Belgian barn or a Norwegian barn or whatever type of barn. But the house has usually a bullseye, and it's red brick. Of course, after the Great Fire, they rebuilt them with brick, and the porch. So if you see that, you can kind of, the barn next to it is most likely a Belgian barn. But yeah, so it's interesting. Those can be spotted in the area here. Yeah, my grandparents' farm, my mother's parents were kitty corner from the Belgian Heritage Center just across the road, and we used to spend quite a bit of time there. It's, you know, back, the families always were pretty tight. My grandparents only lived a mile away on both sides of my parents, but we always loved to spend time on the barn, at the farm, in the barn. And one of the most memorable moments is, you know, or memorable times, is there was a huge rope hanging in the middle of the barn, in the mow area, and it was coming off of one of the support beams. And we spent a lot of time. We'd get on that rope, and there was usually a couple big knots in it, and we'd take it and walk all the way up to the top of the mow, and spent a lot of time in that barn playing in the mows and stuff. So a lot of memories with the barns and farms. We tell an interesting story. People come and don't realize, you know, what we had to offer. There's a lot of history here. You can learn about the Belgians, the immigration, pretty much the who, what, when, where, why, and how. And it's an interesting story. I mean, it's a very interesting story. So get the opportunity, please come.